Hello folks, welcome to another Sci-Fi Dragon video. Today I have another Russian tank model build. This time it's a BT-5 light tank. I'm trying something different in this video. If this were an article on my old Sci-Fi Dragon website, it would begin with historical information and physical statistics about the real-life BT-5 tanks. Since I shut down the website in February of 2023, I decided I'd try putting a segment at the start of my videos that presents the same information I would have put on the website. I'd appreciate any comments about this new segment. Let me know if you'd like the historical information or if you'd prefer videos that get right to the model build. Okay, let's get started. Here's the historical information that I mentioned at the start of the video. Translated from Russian to English, BT stands for Fast Moving Tank, or just Fast Tank. The BT series of tanks were based on the 1930s track and wheel design developed by American race car mechanic J. Walter Christie. The BT-1 was simply an American-built Christie prototype purchased by the Russians and delivered early in 1931 without a turret. The BT-2 was a Russian-built unarmed prototype produced in October 1931. The early BT models were described as convertible tanks because they could run on their road wheels as well as on their tracks. When running on wheels only, a chain drive connected to the last road wheel on each side provided the propulsion, and the front pair of wheels were on swivel mounts so they could be turned to steer the tank. The U.S. military thought this was an overly complex arrangement and rejected Christie's design for a new light tank. Here are the basic statistics for the BT-5 tanks. They remained in active service from 1932 to 1945. BT-5 saw combat in the Spanish Civil War, the Second Sino-Japanese War, the Soviet-Japanese War, and of course, World War II. BT tanks were manufactured by the Malyashev factory from 1932 to 1941. A total of 1,885 BT-5s were produced. The BT-5 was a light tank, weighing in at only 11.5 tons. BT-5s were 18 feet 4 inches long, 7 feet 4 inches wide, and 7 feet 5 inches tall. Armor on a BT-5 ranged from 6 to 23 millimeters thick. This wasn't much protection. 25 millimeters equals 1 inch of armor plate. BT armor was less than a quarter of an inch thick to a maximum of just over 9/10 of an inch thick. Though poorly armored, the BT-5 was well armed for the time period in which it was developed. It carried a 45 millimeter Model 32 main gun. Secondary weapons consisted of 7.62 millimeter DT machine guns. BT-5s were powered by a Model M5 400 horsepower engine and carried 95 gallons of fuel. With full fuel tanks, a BT-5 could travel 120 miles at a maximum speed of 44.7 miles an hour. BT-5 tanks had a crew of 3, a driver, commander, and a gunner. That covers the facts about the real-life BT-5. Now, let's take a look at the Italieri kit. One interesting thing is that this isn't a true Italieri model. This kit was a joint venture between Italieri and a Russian kit maker called Zvezda. How do I know this? First off, it says so on the box top. The next thing that tells me this kit wasn't molded by Italieri is the soft green color of the part sprues. This color is typical of a number of Russian-made model kits, like this little T-60 tank. There's also a Zvezda name tag in the corner of one of the sprues. which tells me that the kit was molded in Russia and only boxed and marketed by Italieri. The kit itself is relatively simple. Surface detail is okay, but it's not up to the level you'd expect from Italieri kits produced over the last 10 years or so. Overall, the parts are not cast as crisply as they should be. But the tires on the wheels are very nicely detailed, as are the hard plastic track sections. The kit has no interior details except for a driver's seat in the lower hull. So I'll move on and get started building this puppy. When I finished reviewing the instructions, I came to a few decisions about how I was going to build this model. First, I want to take advantage of the Christie suspension feature to produce a model tank that looks different from all my other model tanks. In short, I decided to build my BT-5 in the wheels-only mode, no tracks. Except for any interior painting that may be needed, I've decided the best way to paint this kit is to fully assemble it, except for the wheels, then airbrush the entire tank and do whatever hand-painted detailing is needed. The wheels will be added after the entire tank has been painted. Notice I'm using sprue cutters to remove my parts. Never twist parts off a sprue. You can damage the parts, or you'll have to do a lot of cleanup work if you drag along extra plastic from the sprue. I'll assemble this kit using my favorite adhesive, professional grade plastic welder. This makes very strong joints and sets up very quickly. The first step in the kit's instruction guides you through building the lower hull. Okay, I'll get started building the lower hull. Okay, I goofed. The last parts for step 1 are a pair of toe rings that go on the rear hull plate. I accidentally broke one trying to separate it from the sprue. Luckily, fixing this mishap is easy. I simply made new rings from copper wire bent around a heavy needle. Since these are in plastic welder won't keep them in place. So I'll fix them on the model using Zap Gel, a thick cyanoacrylate formula. Step 2 completes the rear lower hull and then adds the front of the lower hull. Okay, the lower hull is almost done. But back in step 1, the instructions indicated that the driver's area should be painted white with a green seat. Frankly, I don't like the way the white paint ends so abruptly. With my driver's hatch open, this could look weird. Rather than waste time waiting for another coat of spray paint to dry, I'm simply going to cover the interior side panels with some 010 thickness sheet styrene. I decided to try adding a driver figure to my BT-5. I'm going to try and fit a seated figure from a Zveda Russian tank crew kit. Now I can attach the headlight supports and headlights. I like these lights because they're hollow. Later, after the rest of the tank is painted, I'll apply my normal headlight treatment, painting the insides of the lights silver, then filling them with clear liquid acrylic medium to produce realistic looking glass lenses. That brings us to step 3 of the kit's instructions. This step assembles and attaches the front wheel mounting parts. While this isn't the most highly detailed kit I've ever built, it has some nice touches, like the steering rods on these front wheel mounts. On to step 4. This covers the assembly of the upper hull and the attachment of the road wheels. I'll assemble the upper hull according to the instructions except for the shovel and spare track section. These parts will be added after the tank's exterior is airbrushed and these parts are hand painted. Likewise, I won't attach the wheels now either. One photo that I have of a real BT-5 shows two long, straight exhaust pipes coming out of the engine grill. The kit has no parts corresponding to these exhaust pipes. So I'll use some small diameter plastruck tubing and create my own exhaust pipes. Now I'll put together the upper hull. The upper hull is really two parts. A simple flat plate closing the box that is the tank's body, plus the sharply angled glacis plate closing off the front of the BT-5. Step 5 builds and attaches the fenders. These are molded in two sections, one for the back end of the tank and one section for the front of the tank. First, I'll assemble the rear fender sections and attach them to the hull. Step 6 is to build the turret. I'll assemble the turret according to the instructions, but with 3 major changes. The first change will be that I'm going to put one hatch in the open position so I can insert a tank commander figure. The figure I'm going to install is a leftover part from my T-34-76 Winter Warrior build. The second change I'm making is to leave off the horseshoe antenna. If the decals are still usable, I'm going to mark this tank as one in service in 1941. Most Russian tanks were not equipped with radios in 1941. A major disadvantage facing panzers that were all equipped with radios. Communication between Russian tanks was done by waving signal flags. Since my commander figure is waving a signal flag, it will indicate that his tank has no radio, so I don't need to attach the kit's antenna. The last change I'm making to my turret is to replace the entire gun mantle and cannon with an aftermarket kit. This means I'll be replacing the kit's plastic cannon with a more accurate machined aluminum gun barrel and replacing the entire mantle assembly with a cast resin part that is far more detailed than its plastic counterpart. The resin part, however, won't let me elevate or depress the gun, but it's still going to look better than the plastic pieces. We've arrived at steps 7 and 8. These are basically just two alternative ways of finishing the BT-5. Both show the turret attached to the tank, but Step 7 shows how to add track sections to the fenders, while Step 8 leaves the fenders bare. I'm going to follow Step 7. However, before I do that, it's time to airbrush my BT-5. I'm going to use Mission Model's Russian Dark Olive overall. When this dries, I'll weather the lower hull and wheels. For the weathering, I'm going to use a product that I haven't tried before. It's called Ammo MIG Finishing Solutions. I'll dab on some loose ground and some turned earth on the bottom and sides of the lower hull, with a lighter application on both sides of each wheel. My BT-5 is fully painted and weathered. Normally, I'd spray a coat of Tester's Dull Coat over the model to seal and protect the paint. No matter how long you've been building models, if you're a beginner or an old hand like me, you should always be open to trying new things. In addition to using a primer coat, which I've never done before, I'm also trying a new product to seal the finish on my BT-5. This is Ammo MIG's Ultra Matte Lucky Varnish. I usually use Dull Coat from a spray can, but this new matte varnish will be applied with my airbrush. The varnish sprayed on evenly and has the flat finish I hoped for. I'm quite satisfied with the results. The only drawback I see to using this is the time it takes to clean my airbrush. However, an airbrush provides more control and precision than a spray can. I think this offsets the cleanup time needed. Overall, I'd say this Ammo MIG product works very well, and I plan to use it on my next few military models. My BT-5 is finished, but I still have one more thing to do. I'm going to put my tank inside an acrylic display case. But first, I'm going to create a very simple glue, grit, and grass landscape to set my BT-5 down onto. Creating this simple scenic backdrop consists of 4 steps. Step 1. Cut a sheet of thick, either 030 or 040 styrene sheet plastic to the same dimensions as the top of the base inside the display case. Step 2. In small sections, cover the styrene sheet with Elmer's white glue or clear craft glue. Cover each patch of glue with static grass, model railroad dirt, or other ground cover. Add some tall grass if you want to add a 3D feel to the landscape. Step 3. When the whole backdrop is completed, set it aside and let it dry for at least 24 hours. Clean up any runoff along the edges, then place the landscape on the base inside the display case. Gluing it down is optional, and frankly, I don't recommend it. If something goes wrong with the model, or you just want to change what you've got inside that particular display case, not having the landscape glued down will let you just remove everything with no markings to the display case or its base. Okay, step 4. Use a few drops of Elmer's clear craft glue to attach the BT-5 to the landscape. Done. Well, there you have my completed BT-5 build. As always, I thank you for watching and hope you enjoyed my little presentation.